Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy, CIZZY, a.k.a. COLLIS. And yes, I spell my name out. Also, it shouldn't technically be a.k.a. because I am Collis, so I'm not also known as Collis, but that doesn't really matter. You already know where we at today, ladies and gentlemen. Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. If you ain't got hands, you know where you need to be. Your grandson, he got beat up, came home, said, "Granddaddy, I just don't got hands like that." Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. You was at Aldi's yesterday, and she took the last piece of ground beef that you wanted. You tried to yank it back, and she hit you with that ding, 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 ding. You didn't know what to do back. Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. And if you just want to get some good workouts in and, learn a little bit of self-defense, learn a little bit about how to exercise in a fun way, Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club, Overland Park, Kansas. This is the Voices of Value podcast, where we bring fire guests onto the show to talk about all things business, creative, entrepreneurship, and just dope shit. And speaking of dope guests, Angel, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Angel McGee, yours truly, Kansas City native, here chopping it up with my boy Collis.
Yes. You know, I was wondering, has anybody ever tried to, and I feel like people only try it if you like black, brown, different, just anything besides Caucasian. Shout out to my Caucasian brothers and sisters. But has anyone tried to like throw a flair to your name? Like, is it Angel? Like, is it Angel? Like, you know, and try to get extra with it ever?
Not too extra. I think more so is so that's your real name, you know, and which my real name is Angelia.
Ooh.
But because of, you know, people's commitment to not being able to, pronounce your name, I adapted Angel along the way when I was really young, to keep it up. And it's just been easier, you know, in a professional sense, that part. Or I think more so it's when people just, your name is right in the email and they either misspell it.
They respond with the misspelled. That pisses me off.
Or give you a whole new name. So the amount of times I've been April and Ashley and Angel's right there, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. That is one of my largest pet peeves on earth. If I literally sign off and the signature, so sign off and signature and email have my name in it, Collis Stutzer at gmail.com. Yes, email me if you want to come on a podcast. Probably going to say no. Anyways, so signature and the name. I'm like, looking forward to hearing back from you. Best, Collis. And then they're like, "Hello, Colin. Hello, Carlos." I'm like, oh my God, y'all are just straight disrespectful. But it can be maybe the start of this conversation. What do you think is one thing in your, professional career that you have learned to be something that really helps you develop strong relationships with people? And let me double down on that so you understand my question a little bit more clear. Responding to somebody the first time you meet them by saying their first name. Like if we just met and then I go across the room and I start chopping it up with other people at an event and I come back and I'm like, "Hey, Angel, can I speak with you for a second?" People feel special. They're like, "Wow, this person remembers my name. We don't really know each other like that." So like little things like that where you've noticed that it's helped you build strong relationships in the industry you're in. So just anything that comes to the top of your head as like a key pillar or practice or characteristic you try to practice in your daily life as a professional that helps you build strong relationships.
Man, I think the introduction part of it is super integral. So for instance, for me, I meet a lot of people in a lot of, I don't want to say random people, but a lot of one-offs. Like I'm not probably going to see them day to day. And so I always feel some type of way when we come back and cross paths and I'm like, I know your face, but I can't remember your name. So what I've generally done is meeting them on the first time. As much as I'm in a room with a person, I'll repeat your name, just to keep that, all right, bet I got the visual image in my mind. And then on top of that, really just pouring into the relationship itself. I think I've loved the fact of people that consistently reach out or just keep in touch and stay. I think that just really builds relationships. I've also really begin to kind of compartmentalize certain relationships. So I got different buckets of your professional, your personal, your mix of professional with personal. Because I think at the end of the day, like, it depends on the business that you're in or the business you're conducting is where you can kind of put people in different buckets. But for me, I love it when I can find a boundary of keeping it professional but keeping it personal at the same time, because I think that adds a layer of the realness to it instead of, you know, we're just both working together because we're on this project together, my company, your company, or we're working together because I'm paid to work with you, or we're just in this partnership together. But it provides an opportunity to, all right, when we're done with this project, you know, we're letting our hair down. We can talk. Just really keep it real. So I really like, as much as I have the professional connections and being introduced to people, I love keeping it also to see if there's a personal aspect as they feel comfortable. Yeah. You know, because not everybody's going to be like, let's go have a drink.
Right.
You know,
you got to feel it out as well. It's like you can, at the end of the day, when you're in, you know, you're at the boardroom table, you know it's business time. Keep it business. When you step out of there, you can test the waters. Like, you know, oh, what are you interested? What are you doing this Friday or something like that? And if they're open up, you can be like, okay, now we can explore that conversation a little bit deeper and get a little less worky. But if they're like, oh, not much, you know, just work. That's them telling you straight up front, like, hey.
Reading the room.
Yeah, read the room, exactly. So we just talked about professionalism and career and industry and being in business settings. So we haven't shared. What do you do? Like, what industry do you function and work in? How do you identify yourself? What's like your elevator pitch when you walk in a room? Somebody's like, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, of course. So I've spent, my generalized industry is sports. Sports has been it's my identity. It's who I am. When you think of Angel, or where you hear of Angel, in this community, at least in this world, you know, sports is associated with it. So for me, I've spent 10 years in the industry, over 10 years at this point, between NFL and MLB, working with the Royals, working with the Chiefs. I worked with the Players Alliance as well. In that aspect, I worked with all 30 MLB teams throughout those partnerships.
Sounds like too much work for me.
And that's just like on the front end, full-time, forward-facing part of it. Even on the back end and kind of like the nugget side and like my hidden gems, I've worked a lot with athletes and their foundations here in Kansas City, and even kind of some that are sporadic around the country too. Also doing some consulting work, working with a few businesses and organizations on the side, just helping them in the realm of business development. Recently, we just talked earlier about getting into the NIL space, which is still super brand new for me.
Brand new for everybody.
Yeah.
So brand new for everybody. We were talking just before we pressed record how like that's an ever-changing world on the hourly, on the daily. Like every few moments, there's a new rule. There's something somebody's complaining about, some new deal that was secured that makes every other athlete want to be able to get that type of deal. So yeah, sorry, continue.
No, it's all good.
Very new.
It's just more so I like to call myself a chameleon in the industry. It's just pretty much wherever I've landed, I can assimilate to that culture, really get into the work that's being presented in front of me, what you want me to do, how you want me to go about executing it. And in the same space, doing a lot of volunteerism. So I love being engaged in our community from a civic standpoint. So that can sometimes go out of the sports space. A lot of the times that's more into like an educational space, but dealing with some of the issues that our city does face and our community does face. And I'm very, very huge on being an advocate and a face for boys and girls that look like me, in the professional sense, just seeing somebody who has attained a level that they hope to be and where they want to be and inspiring. And so just kind of all around. But I go back to sports just being the foundation and my passion.
I love it. And I think, I think I just posted this yesterday, or it's planned to be posted somewhere on LinkedIn. Anyways, but it's just like sports is fundamental to being successful in business. And I feel like there's just so many principles. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's a business podcast. Of course, we love entrepreneurship. We love bringing founders on. But business doesn't mean you have to be a founder or the owner of a company necessarily. There's plenty of positions where you have to understand business, love business, know how to conduct business. Right. And that's what business is. Business is a very broad category. So when we think about sports and the character traits you build, the discipline, the the relationship building, or the ability to build relationships, the ability to assimilate to different cultures from being on different teams as you grow up, and learning how to build friendships and connect with people, and then uplift new people that are on the team. So being able to uplift your team members and your coworkers and your staff that work alongside you, under you, above you, whatever. So I think it's funny how there's a sports business because of how integral sports is to business, if that makes sense. So, why sports though? Like, run us back to 5-10-year-old Angel. Like, what about your early years influenced you into the sports industry, or into falling in love with the world of sports? What happened early on in your life to make that happen?
Yeah, early on, my favorite sport, just throughout my whole life, has always been basketball. But that's over. I mean, I've been in different worlds since then. But my earliest kind of memory is watching the Chicago Bulls. With my dad and my grandmother, who that was her favorite team, but Michael Jordan was my dad's favorite athlete in the basketball world, and it just piqued interest. So I remember going back and then wanting to play basketball. And then I was introduced, and I don't know if I just stumbled across a game or just was reading, but then I got exposed to UConn women's college basketball.
Legendary.
Man.
Legendary.
And I mean, like Pat Summitt and,
We love you, Maya
all
Moore.
those ladies. Yeah. So even then with Gino Ariema, and for me, Sue Bird, who's my all-time favorite athlete, Diana Taurasi, it just continued to build. And of course, at some point in time between 6th and 7th grade, I wanted to be an WNBA player. So I continued to play the sport, but by the time we reached high school, that was just not happening. And, sometimes you just have to accept
Sometimes you got to accept
what your
it.
path is, and that wasn't mine. But I still love the sport realm. And so really that got me peeking into what other, careers could be happening in the sport. And throughout that, of course, the number one platform I always tuned into was ESPN, Sports Center. I would go to sleep watching Sports Center. I would come home from school watching it. Like, it was just very abnormal in that sense for a girl like my age that was just coming home, and I would tune into Sports Center. I just wanted to see what the news was for the day, all the above. And that piqued my interest into communications and broadcasting. And so in turn, just kind of fast forwarding, once I got into high school, I wanted to look at what those opportunities were. So I got involved in our broadcasting team in high school, our newspaper to get some writing skills. And that eventually transformed into college, where I ended up being our sports director for our campus television station, did some sideline reporting, did some play-by-play reporting, all with the hopes of taking my talents to Bristol, Connecticut to essentially be an ESPN reporter. But God works in mysterious ways, and kind of just pivoted my route in coming back to Kansas City and exposed me to the team side of things and professional sports. So that's what originally piqued my interest in the world of sports. And then since then, feels like I've had my hand in everything.
So what high school did you finish out at? And then I know you went to Truman State.
Yes.
Or at least started at Truman State. So before we jump into college, what high school did you finish out at?
Yeah, I graduated from Lee Summit West High School.
And at Lee Summit West, who was one teacher that stands out as like an integral figure in your... did you go there for 4 years?
I went there actually for 2.
Okay, so for those 2 years, who was an integral... like mentor, an adult mentor, essentially. Like, who was somebody, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the sports way. Maybe it was just somebody who was really kind every day that reminded you kindness is like super important, whatever it might be. But what's a lesson and a teacher, or whatever you want to call it, somebody who worked in the goddamn school to get to what I'm trying to say? I think you understand the question.
I had a lot of teachers. I think the one that stands out to me the most was... his name was Mr. Myers, and he was my biology teacher. He was also my advisory teacher as well. So I would start off the day with him, and then we would go on to our classes as needed, whatnot. But it wasn't anything about biology, because that is not my cup of tea. But it was just more so just how empathetic he was. And just overall how he treated us as students. I think for me, always keeping in the back of my mind, regardless of the industry that I work in, people will always remember how you made them feel. They may not remember what you said to them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And he was just one of those teachers that always just felt like he looked after me. He was always proud of me, asked about things I was doing. When I wasn't getting the best grades sometimes, he made a way for me to bring it up.
Made a way. That always cracks me up.
He made a way. But it was just, overall, somebody that you just felt like was in your corner, somebody that was supportive, a safe space, essentially. So he's one of the teachers that come to mind when I think about that. And then I've had an abundance of coaches as well that similarly played that part of just looking out, and you can remember being in high school, we were not doing things we were supposed to be doing. We were very much immature. And just keeping a straightforward path. And sometimes you needed those folks that were in the building to just straighten you up real quick. And I was a pretty good kid for the most part, but it was always good to just, don't make me call your mama or,
right. But they also have to build a strong enough relationship with you and carry themselves in a way that you trust them. Yeah. Because regardless of what an adult says, it doesn't really mean shit in case you trust them. Right. That's one thing I learned from being a young bull, and even now being a person who struggles with authority. And I'm not saying I'm out here getting in trouble, but just struggles with authority in general. It's just like, if I don't respect you or what you've done or how you treat me or how you carry yourself, whatever you say doesn't really mean much to me, even if you mean it to mean well, and even if you are a good person. But like, if I don't respect and connect with like what you got going on, like, it doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
And so like, I feel like that's super important for all the teachers out there that are nervous going back to teach, high schoolers after you graduated college. You might be younger like us in your late 20s or 30s or early 30s, and you're just like, I'm scared to go teach these high schoolers. I don't know. They're going to be judging me. Who cares if they judge you? Be yourself.
Right.
Walk in there and care about them.
Right.
And if you walk in there, you care about them, and you're not here trying to put a facade on, you're going to be able to make some positive impact on some young bulls, some young ladies that are going to be able to create change and impact the world later on in life. So just felt like that was important to mention. So as we transition from Lee Summit West to Truman State, first and foremost, what made you decide on Truman State? Was it a friend? Was it they had a great certain program? Was it you got a little scholarship?
For college, it.
Gotcha.
So mom and dad made that decision for me to attend Truman State. I had a few other colleges that I was looking at and had pretty much committed to Mizzou. But of course,
until they seen that 4-year check.
Until you see all that scholarship money come in. But I think ultimately it was where I needed to be. I mean, it afforded me lifelong friendships that I still have to this day. Just the experiences, overall, it was just the fit for me, unbeknownst to me going into the situation, but definitely paid off in the long run.
I love it. So Truman State, you come back to Kansas City. What's the first move you make? You land back in Kansas City. You just graduated college. Are you like, I'm going to take the year off and just have fun? I know a lot of people did that, and you just caught them in Westport for 365 days. What was the mission? What was the plan? What was the first action when you landed back in KC after college?
I hit the ground running.
Towards what?
Running towards what? Which is crazy because I spent over 6 years committed to thinking I was going to go to Bristol, Connecticut, wanting to be an ESPN reporter, working to just build up that legwork, right? But when I came back, it was almost like I had an epiphany, and I just did not feel like I had the same passion. I don't know where it came from. I just felt like I literally woke up one day and was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I had to figure out really quickly, well, if that's not what you want to do, sis, what do you want to do? Because we can't just sit here. And I knew that, sports really transcended across the spectrum in a lot of different areas. So really, truthfully, I just got online and started looking at just what piqued my interest, what seemed to kind of be along a little bit of what I was working towards and went to school for. And so that opened up a door for me to go into being the sports marketing and management intern with MoCan, which is the AAU organization, very well.
If you don't know
MoCan,
don't
know about MoCan,
you better find out, baby. You better find out, producing some of the best athletes out of Kansas City, or helping produce, should I say.
Yes.
Helping to produce some of the best athletes out of Kansas City. Anybody you know that's in the league right now from Kansas City probably ran through MoCan. Let's just go ahead and establish that. Yeah. But to dive a little bit deeper into what it is, considering you worked for the organization, could you break down who is MoCan?
Yeah, so they've had a little bit of restructure along the years, but back when I was there, the organization was really set around giving middle school, high school athletes the exposure. So the tournaments, the travel ball, as we like to coin that term, and giving and making sure that the talent that is in Kansas and Missouri is being seen locally, nationally, regionally, just like talent from all over the country is being exposed to. So it's really been on the up and up. I've kind of stayed in touch with them, but back then they were really getting to that level, and so they're still very much in the mix for a lot of things. But for me as an intern, it was basketball, so I love the sport, and I was like, well, let's just see what it's doing. It was great overall, but I realized really quickly that I did not just want to sit behind a desk all day and push papers and do just kind of like that general office work. So then I got back into the search of things, and my mom was just as committed with me, which is so funny because she's a huge part of my life and my support system. Both my parents have been. But got into the search, looking through different teams, and I stumbled across two positions between the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Really had no idea what they really were. It seemed interesting to some degree. Applied for both and got both. And once I got my foot in the door...
You got both?
I got both.
Wait a minute now. Hey, tell us about your resume. Tell us about how you wrote that cover letter. Give us a little game. You know what I'm saying? Should we launch a resume development agency right now on the show?
It's all about shooting your shot.
Well, you shot your shot and you got both positions. Continue. That's impressive.
Yes. So at the time, one was in their community department side. The other was in the, they've now called it game entertainment, but it was event presentation and production. One was a mascot assistant, believe it or not. So that's actually how I started my career with the Royals. And the other was working with kids with health and wellness in the stadium, bringing them out and giving them tours.
Does that have any tie-in with like Play 60 and that whole thing?
So that was actually a program. The Chiefs, I believe, were one of, at the time, 3 stadiums that actually had an internal, what do you want to call it? It was called the Sports Lab. So pretty much think of a condensed version of Chuck E. Cheese, but all your activities, all your games, everything is geared towards health, wellness, and nutrition for kids. Okay. So every game had a focus on it, whether it was like brain activity, whether it was like working your muscles, whether it's like talking about bones, whether it was talking about just general stuff and just like sports medicine, training, how to keep your bodies healthy.
Why y'all ain't call me, Chiefs? you know, it's the top tier personal trainer in Kansas City. Why y'all ain't hit my phone, huh? Anyways, I just want to put y'all on the spot. That's all. If you watch this,
plug yourself. And so I did a lot of that throughout the week with groups from it was a field trip destination. If you think about it that way. So we brought in
local schools would bring their students.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So
just want to
all
clarify.
over. I mean, we had students traveling, hours from their schools to come
goddamn.
To be at the Chiefs Stadium. But it was
because like
deal.
You said, it's one of 3
Correct.
stadiums that were doing that out of 35 teams or 30 teams. So
out of
that's
30.
Impressive. Awesome.
Yeah. So spent a lot of time doing that. And that was just kind of like the repetitive sense each day in and out, sometimes on the weekends. And then with the mascot assistant stuff.
So you took both. I didn't understand that aspect.
I took both positions.
You took both positions, and they allowed that? Did you? Was that like well communicated in that situation, or were you hacking the system?
No, it was part-time on both sides.
Okay, sick.
So when going into it, I wanted to see what the hours look like. So honestly, truly what it was is by day, I would be Chiefs. By night, I would be Royals to some degree. Makes sense. Then sometimes they would offset each other. But I could make our own schedules on both sides. So all you do is, give me your availability when you can come in and to that degree. So on the side of the mascot assistant, that was really easy work. I mean, people don't think about certain aspects of sports or sports teams and talking about mascots. And
correct. So break that down real quick.
Yeah, that was a whole different world.
What did that role look like? Because you're right. Nobody's thinking about the mascot assistant. Nobody's really thinking about the mascot except of just like, oh, look, there's the mascot. Take a picture, baby boy. Come here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in this case for Slugger, it was more so making sure when we go to appearances or we're going anywhere off site, I'm going in, connecting with whoever the liaison is for that specific event or appearance, making sure we have a streamlined understanding of what his responsibilities are, what is our timing, where can he change, just kind of all the logistics, and then bringing him in literally so that he doesn't have to talk to anybody. I bring him in, he does his thing, he leaves. I come in, introduce, he can go back out, and then I leave as well, and talking through all of that. For games at Kauffman Stadium, it was more so of, I like to call it a little bit of a bodyguard situation. Because you're walking around with him, but you're helping facilitate, everybody wants to take a picture with the mascot, and so from adults to kids. So just making sure, nothing gets out of control.
Got to keep it moving. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm the one.
You can't pull his nose. Sorry.
Yes, you can't
pull
his
little boy,
tail.
stop kicking him.
Yes, yeah. So if you want to be mad at anybody, you can't be mad at him, but you can be mad at me. But
which is technically really important when you think about the branding of the team's mascot, and really the mascot is important to the organization. You know what I'm saying? So if you think about how, for example, you watch the mascot punch a little kid, hey, stop touching my tail. What's that going to look? First off, we're in a new generation where cameras is always going, so that's going viral. Now, after he gets fired and they get ripped, the team also gets a new one ripped by ESPN and all these different media organizations that are running stories about their team mascot that beat up a child. It doesn't look good for the entire organization. Not saying it would be the mascot's only problem, but you get what I'm trying to say. So that's interesting. And then on the flip side, walk us through what your day-to-day activities, as long as you'd like to extend it or as short as you'd like to extend it in terms of the Play 60 and how you were integrating and working with, and what were you doing there?
Yeah. So that's pretty much, like I said, it was just coming through and welcoming the kids that were coming through the stadiums, teaching them about health and wellness, nutrition, and then ultimately taking them on a 60-minute tour around the stadium to get their 60 minutes of play or activity for that day. So that was the standard procedure day in and day out. Just different groups of kids.
It's almost like, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but like a tour guide.
Yes.
In a way.
Essentially, you just adding some extra bonus features in there as far as actually facilitating a program alongside of it.
So there's definitely
So I know. I mean, I've been at Arrowhead now for over 10 seasons. So when I tell you, I know every nook, cranny, shortcut.
So let's jump into that for a little bit. What is one thing you're allowed to share that most visitors to Arrowhead Stadium don't know? This room is in that place, or they don't know that there's a workout room over here, or they don't know that there's a suite on the back end of the, you get what I'm saying? Is there anything that most people who visit the Chiefs Stadium never will see?
Well, for a lot of people,
obviously the locker rooms.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some of those premier places. I guess what I can say is a unique feature. Now, we'll have to preference and say that the sports lab is no longer in the stadium. So they took it out.
Is it still happening though?
That program, yes, it transitioned into a mobile program that can actually go to schools. So I stopped being a sports lab guide, I think 2015. So it's been a while since I've been in that space with them. Yeah, because I'd started to do other things with the organization. But I think one really cool thing that a lot of people may not know is that with the renovations that happened in 2008, the Hunt family built their own apartment in the stadium. So the Founders Club, the Founders Suite section, which is where all your A-list celebrities and a lot of those folks that they host will come in and normally be in. And it's multiple suites, but at the very end, it is the Hunt family suite that also contains their 6-bedroom suite in their house inside of the stadium. And so the general idea behind that is the Hunt family, if anyone does not know, they do not reside in Kansas City. They do sometimes, but their residence has normally been in Dallas. And when they come and travel in, they wanted a place to stay instead of always looking for a place to stay. So having something that was very accessible in the stadium when they come was the thought process behind that. But how often the living part of it is used has kind of decreased over the years.
But that's interesting in general. I wonder how many other team owners in the league have a similar setup in the stadium and or nearby the stadium that nobody really knows about or like thinks about. It's like, oh, what's that little building on the back of the stadium over there in Tennessee? Oh, that's where. You know what I'm saying? They are. So that's intriguing. Who handles like just, and I want to quickly dive over this because I want to get back into your story. So who handles like when people like A-list superstars are coming in? We saw one of the Paul brothers there with KSI a few weeks ago. Like who handles these A-list celebrities when they're coming in? Do they just buy tickets and automatically, just because they're a celebrity, get access to the field? Like who's communicating with them and being like, okay, this is where you'll go, this is where you'll hang out, this is where your seats will be, this is when you're allowed on the field? Like, is there somebody that coordinates that?
Yeah, it's normally a team rep within the Chiefs. So it's not going to be just a normal buy tickets. It's someone has reached out to someone's team, whether it be on either side. Right. Either it's Chiefs reaching out or that person's team reaching out to the Chiefs. And then it goes from there as far as the team rep that's with everybody. So everyone knows the movements, where they're coming in to that perspective. And so a lot of that will go through a lot of the operational side of things.
Got you. So it's 2024, Angel. You're no longer in 2015. So what is your role now with the Kansas City Chiefs? And let's start there, and then we'll dive into some of the other things you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast in terms of what you have your hand in.
Of course. So now it's more so I'm a field coordinator for game days. So that essentially just is a part of our staff that runs all the entertainment elements of the game, pre-game, during the game. So we have a staff that's devoted to doing a bunch of different movements on the field, and national anthem, color guard, first pass, just a lot of the hype and celebratory things. I have been the head lead and executioner of majority of the flags that you see on the field. So we have our big Arrowhead flag that we pull out every year and make sure we're on it, but we also do the American flag when we do primetime games or a series of flag movements and designs on the field. And normally that's just the lead that I take for pregame.
And how are you communicating throughout pregame? Is it like walkie-talkies? Like how are you letting them know, okay, flag to this side, okay, move to this side, get off the field? Or like, is this all walkie-talkie? Is this in the ears like CIA agents? Like walk us through the communication aspect of that, because a lot of your background is in communication. You study communication. You want to be in communication, and now you're a coordinator, which requires a lot of communication. So, what does the detailed communication look like during game day?
Yeah, so during game day, of course, everyone's on a headset. So we're all talking upstairs ultimately to our hub, which is the control room, the production. So everyone, the announcers, everyone that controls the LED boards, the crown or the jumbotron, the vision, everything, every aspect of the game is controlled upstairs. And so that's who we are all centered in talking to, along with talking to each other on the field. Because when you're in one place, the field is huge. So, and once more people are on the field, it crowds your vision to a lot of different spaces. So upstairs, they can normally see everything happening. So, hey, we need to get someone over to northeast corner. We need someone to run over and help so-and-so in the northwest corner, because they can see the eyes. And then on the field, if we see something, we're talking to each other. Like I can be at the front, but I can't see the back. So I need to make sure that one of our team members is controlling the back of whatever I need. That's generally how we communicate, is all through headset throughout the entire game. For me, I have more of a lead with the in-game live shots. So anything, I walk around with my cameraman, shout out to Bob, and we're executing the live shots, which means pretty much any live shot you see of people in the stadium that's associated to a sponsored break is us. So section 239, row 13, y'all just want a free coupon to Papa John's. Boom. We go to the row. We've set it all up. We got somebody holding a cute little Papa John's poster, and it's a smile and a wave, and that's just kind of boom. But we do that we have a live shot of some degree, even when we're honoring military service men and women. If we're doing a flag participant. If we're doing youth football, we do a lot of those live shots, but mine are more so with the marketing team. So I'm joining their marketing person coming down who has all the items that we need. I make sure I got myself. Everything is set up from the back. I'm not in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera setting everything up. So that's literally what I do every single game day.
And think about your role. Think about the past, however many, let's just say, 7 home games that you like. Think about your season thus far. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to restrict it to this season because there might be a memory from the past. So as long as you've been in this role, think about one of the seasons and one moment that makes you smile really big. What comes to mind? And it's okay if you take a moment to think. Like just from you're working, it's a game, you're working, you're going, and there's something that comes to mind like, damn, that game, this row, or like this kid, or this play that I just happened to be walking over here, but I saw it happen right here. It didn't have to be on the field. It can be. Yeah. It just makes you smile. A memory makes you smile from one of the past few seasons.
Because we're now talking about almost over 180 games in total.
Which means whatever you say is probably, it means it was a damn good moment, whatever you say.
I think I have a few. I think for me, a few of them would be, the main one is probably winning the AFC Championship, our first, out of the last time we were at the Super Bowl, but winning the AFC Championship, just that moment, realizing we are going to the Super Bowl, I can't describe that. I can't describe it in words just because of the feeling. Literally everyone's in tears where you're looking around the stadium, like the stadium on game days. I have to preface this. On game days, everyone is zipped up tight. Like everything is boom, 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 boom. It's a very, very, well-oiled machine on game day. So a lot of it is everyone's on their P's and Q's. Like you have to assert your position. You got to assert your leadership in certain spaces, making sure security is also on point. So it's a lot of different things that happen on game days that people don't take into effect or just take into consideration after the fact of like, oh, why that may have happened. But in that moment, you literally saw everyone just let their hair down. Like just finally, like we're all experiencing the same emotion at the same time on the field, and you're looking in the stands and people are crying and just jumping up down. It was a crazy feeling overall to have experienced that. A more personal one for me, I think it's just the way that I'm just really grateful and blessed to be in a position where I give an experience. I should preface and also say that with a flag and some of the movements on the field, those are also include season ticket members. So season ticket members can cash in their Kingdom Rewards points and do really cool things. And one of those are being able to be a part of the flag ceremonies on the field. So for some of them, that is probably the first and last time they will ever be on the field in any capacity. Yeah. So around players.
Because you damn sure ain't going to the league, buddy. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway,
no,
set expectations, reality.
But like you just, they're right on the same field. They're maybe looking across and like Patrick Mahomes is right there. You know what I'm saying? So, and then depending on who we're playing, it could be another superstar player that's right there on the sideline next to them. So I always try to work in a way. Things get stressful at times.
Of course.
But I always try to really remember each group. I do this every home game. So it's repetitive for me and I'm comfortable and I'm used to it. And sometimes I really make sure to take a step back and allow this to be a dope experience for those who are in my group, who are with me and working with me. And then when you get to know them and just kind of talking to them, you start to, hear some of the family ties. I've been a season ticket member for 30 years. And I've never done anything like this. And I'm like, well, bet we're about to change this today. You're going to have the best time of your life. And I think I'm blessed to be in a space and in a position to do that for others. And just watching the joy and the experience in their faces.
I love that. Now we're going to flip that question on its head. I'm not going to ask you for a specific moment, but I'm going to say it is a very well-oiled machine. It's one of the largest productions that goes on TV, especially how well we've been playing the past few years. It makes it an even larger production. Yes. So there's a lot of things moving, a lot of pivotal, roles to be played. What would be the worst thing that could happen in your position? Like what's something that could, like if you dropped the ball or if somebody on your team dropped the ball, but everyone, one team is one team. Yeah. So if y'all drop the ball, what's the worst thing that could happen?
The worst thing that could happen is all the sound go out. The speakers blow out.
Oh, that would be weird. Just straight silence in the stadium.
Yeah, or someone singing, you see their mouth moving and there's nothing coming out. That we have in the past had.
That sounds like something that I think I've seen happen. Not for the Chiefs necessarily.
Yeah, but just in general.
On TV
or
before.
The singer forgets the lyrics.
We've
seen that happen before. That's actually happened.
Ooh, I feel bad for them though.
Yeah.
More than y'all, I feel bad for them.
Yes. For me, the worst. And you just forget it.
What it is though. Say, can't you see?
Yeah. So fortunately enough, there's been a lot of being ready for that situation. So no one probably realizes it. But when you're in the stadium, I will say, if you look around the scoreboard while the anthem is playing, you will see the lyrics. So nobody can get stuck because it's being played for you. But on the flip side of it, because I deal specifically with the flag movements, and the flags are so huge, they take up a great amount of space on the field. My biggest fear all the time is that when they unfurl it or we take it out, the moment it's unrolled, it's either upside down, it's backwards. I've already had this happen multiple times, which also sucks, is when we're running the flag out, and it depends on which flag we're having. Normally for the field-sized American flag, which takes, so the Arrowhead flag that we have every single game day is normally 50 to 75 people. So that'll be season ticket members and redcoaters. When we do the field-sized American flag, we're talking 150 people. So it amps up the opportunities for something to go wrong. And those things have happened. So people tripping and falling on the field, running the flag out, it's happened. And that's the one thing that I tell everyone. I have to preface what to do. Believe it or not, you got to go through, if you fall, what to do. Stay down, just really, yes, because of all the safety mechanics that come behind it. That flag is so heavy that if you trip and fall and you attempt to try and stand up and walk out, that flag weighs about hundreds of pounds. And so you could really injure yourself trying to stand up versus just, you're going to have to army crawl it out. Pretty much. I'll look for you, find an opening, but you got to army crawl it out. So for me personally, those are some of the things that I have fear of if we're on a game day and something like that. But I've done this for so long now that it's I'm not so much concerned about the flag portion, but there's much more of an increase in someone falling, trying to do a flag, versus the flag coming out the wrong way.
And the crazy thing about situations like that is that be the dumb situations where your auntie get hurt. Like she's like, it's my day, I'm running the flag out. And she running, and she tripped, tear her Achilles. Now that's her story for the next 30 years. Like, this is why I can't work out no more. It'd be a sad ass story like that. I don't know, like as a trainer, you just be hearing some weird stories. I'd be like, they'll be like, yeah, some of my back pain has been for 20. Okay, so how you hurt your back? So my daughter, I took her to the park. She's riding down the slide and I tried to catch her. And then all of a sudden just snap. I'm like, what? What? You trying to play with your kid? So it'd be crazy shit like that. But anyways, I love it. There's so much more we could dive into about, the work that you're in right now and the work that you do. But I do want to take a moment to dive into your volunteer work, your, passion around civic and social impact. So I guess, where does that passion come from? When did that start to develop and kind of like you start feeling some bubbles in your system? Like, man, I need to do something. I need to do something for the community. I need to do something that's for the benefit, for the common good of my Kansas City folks, or for the Kansas City youth. Or I know you said specific to people and young people who look like you. But when did that start bubbling up, and what are you currently doing to be active in that space?
Of course. Man, I mean, it started early on. Also, always wanting to be involved in something. I was very much the overachiever in high school, throughout school. But as it got through the professional stages, so once I got into, securing a full-time position with the Royals and being in the space of community, and working specifically like with kids, with education, with schools, you start to see just the power that you do have with yourself and that you can advocate for those around you in spaces that normally other folks can't or wouldn't have access to, and bringing up those issues to those folks who are the change makers and can have a say in what happens. Once I realized I had that kind of access to power, it really started to change what I wanted to do with it outside of just I work for, the Royals, or outside of I work for the Chiefs. And as you're in the communities, for me specifically of BIPOC communities, you're seeing just how integral it is for them to see themselves in others that are just not, it's not just regular occupations you see around themselves. You're seeing a Black woman that's in the sports team. She's calling the shots, so to speak, in some passion, some way, and she's leading the charge in the community that birthed her. We don't see that a whole lot. First of all, you really don't see a lot of me at that level in general. Now you do, and now we've been increasing it in the last 5 years, but coming up, the only person I had to lean on was myself. I'm grateful for the sponsors and the mentors that I've gained along the way, but coming up, I didn't have that. So for me, I've come up just supporting and leaning on myself, the confidence of myself. So I know that in those spaces, somebody else feels the same way, but what can I do in opening up the door behind me? I know what I had to do or endure. I know what I had to go through to get to where I am now, but I don't want that path to be for somebody else because I've already walked it. So how can I now be the person that has my hand out to you? Take my hand, let's go. We're going to walk this together because I've already been there. And that for me is what really has kept me grounded in my city, in my community, volunteerism, expanding out of sports. I sit on an abundance of different boards throughout the years of, specifically for scholarships, for education, just being a pillar in that community, in the face, in the space that people needed to see, especially for kids. You can only be what you see. And when they don't see it, they don't know it's attainable. So show somebody like me that's been there, that's done that, to show you other avenues in sports. For a lot of us and in our communities, our kids are just thinking about being an athlete. They just want to go pro. And that's not the reality for a lot of our kids. And so I do a lot of conversations and speaking to a lot of schools and classrooms of, well, if you are an athlete, great, keep that up, keep working towards it because I want you to do your absolute best. But let's also think about plan B, because being an athlete isn't your life. It's not lifelong.
A lot of bulls are done by 30.
Absolutely.
Done by 35.
So what you going to do after that?
Mm-hmm. You got long ass young life.
Absolutely.
After that.
And you can do so much. So that's where it's like, let me tell you what other avenues are in the sport if sports is where you still want to be in and still be in the space. And I could go all day on this topic, but I think it just really sums up on just finally understanding the power that I had, the influence, the impact, and it wasn't just about me. It's more so understanding like how much of a role I can play for those coming behind me and for everybody else, my sisters and colleagues and my brothers in the same industry and around me that I can help open up doors for as well.
I love that. What are some foundations here in Kansas City? I guess it doesn't have to be Kansas City only, but let's just say in the Heartland region in general, that you're really passionate about just the work that they do. And if anybody out there is listening and is interested in being a volunteer in some way or fashion, it's an organization that you'd recommend that they start with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of them have been personal to me that I've been able to serve with. So for the Teach for America, Prep KC, KC Scholar. It was formerly known as KC Scholars, but it's now Great Jobs KC, Youth Guidance, and all these, the common denominator and all of those are that they deal with kids in mainly under-resourced areas that are either in a scholarship, trying to get a scholarship, or they're supporting them in a way that we're coming into schools and introducing them to occupations. We're supporting teachers in underserved communities and also giving them the support that they need, and also mentorship. So a lot of it's in an education setting pillar to some degree, and they may have different focuses, but ultimately they come back. I just think education is so integral in these spaces, and for kids that, you know, may not live in an area where the district is as great as the one that they're living in, it doesn't mean that they can't have those same opportunities, or they can't be exposed to the careers that are around them. And Absolutely. So I'm super, super passionate about that.
I love it. Yeah, an easy one for sure for people to tap into, especially if you're in a career that you don't see a lot of people that look like you in. Is definitely Preps KC. I've interacted with them once or twice just in the lane of personal training and talking to some elementary and middle school students about personal training. Although it was only on Zoom, I would have loved to be able to go in person.
Yes.
I think that's a great way for Black and brown individuals. Matter of fact, especially a lot of the guests that have come on this show. Like a lot of you guys that have come on the show or will come on the show in the future are people who you're the only one in the room.
Yeah.
And so if you can, one way that you can easily start changing that narrative over the next 10 to 20 years is to go back and speak to the young bulls and start giving them the confidence to feel like just because you don't see anybody in the room doesn't mean you can't be the person in the room. And the more of you guys that like take that to heart now, the more likely you won't be the only one in the room, or at least you'll have some comrades.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That you can go fight the good fight with, you know, alongside. So I love that. What is your feeling about the negative 5-degree weather at last week's game? How did you make it through that? Listen, I've been out there walking in it for 45 minutes, but I didn't have to stand out there for 3 hours. So 45 minutes is one thing. I damn near got frostbite on my toes today. And last week, I couldn't feel my fingers.
Yeah.
So talk to me about last week's game. Did you have the correct attire? How are our good athletes feeling? How's the coaches feeling? I know they out here suffering. How are your superiors and coworkers feeling? Like, did everyone make it through the game okay? Let's talk about that shortly.
Let's just start there. Yeah, so you said 3 hours. My hours are normally 8 to 9. So that was my entire time being outside.
It's cold.
With some periods of going
60
inside.
Minutes, it's cold.
On tap, that was the coldest game ever played at Arrowhead Stadium. I believe it was the 4th coldest game recorded in history for the NFL. And so, of course, that's the coldest game I've ever worked in my career. I think we tried to prepare the best that we possibly could, which is...
What that look like for you? Would you run us through? All right, you at the crib.
Y'all needed me to make a reel.
You at the crib. We need the, what is it called? The Get Ready With Me?
Yes.
Let's do the Get Ready With Me live on Voices of Value podcast. What did that day look like? Run us through the GRWM
of course, man.
Before you went to the stadium.
It started off with waking up and just being like, how many layers can I put on without falling over? So, and feasibly being able to walk, lift,
right.
stand.
Mobility,
Yeah,
right.
mobility.
Yeah.
So how many layers can I actually put on and still be mobile to a degree? So from top to bottom, at least 3 to 4, all the way through and through. And a lot of those were like thicker. So I didn't need to have 5 and 6 because those pieces that I had on were thermal.
1, 2, and 3 was thermal.
Yeah, I had thermal and wool and all kinds of everything you could think of. But I mean, man, that was probably one of the toughest games I had to get through, specifically because all the movements I have to report, you know, I'm usually there 5-6 hours before the game time itself. And then out of that time, 2 hours is spent checking in and going on rehearsals with everybody. That's because we do all rehearsals before the games.
I only noticed because I watched on the Tennessee Titans YouTube channel. No, it wasn't. It was Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were going through basically your same position. They were like following somebody in the exact same position as you, and they were like going through how they do the. You know, I guess in Tampa Bay they got a big ass boat or whatever, and like
the ship,
and they were going through the coordination. They were trying, you know, doing run-throughs 6 hours, 7 hours before continuing.
Yeah, it's a lot that goes into preparation that people don't think about when instead of just flags coming onto the field and pyro shooting fire. It's so much that we have to go through. So going through and making sure, normally I'm pretty mobile. I'm got a loud voice. So I'm talking to a lot of people, giving directions, but it being so cold, your attention span is shortened. So I'm trying to shorten all of our conversations up as much as I possibly can to honestly get everybody in and out, because it was just inhumanely cold. Like, a lot of people had to go to the hospital afterwards because of hypothermia and other things. And so I'm thinking safety, but also we got a job to do. So what's the best way we're going to get through all of this? So ultimately it was fine. It was just shortened conversations. Just you guys listen. I had to be more blunt and more stern than I normally am, but I always preface all my conversations. And when I'm introducing and talking to new people, I say, hey, y'all, going everything I'm going to do today, I'm going to say it with a smile on my face. So regardless of how it sounds, I got a smile on my face. And it usually lightens the mood because it gets crazy down there. You've got a lot of timing to deal with. You've got NFL personnel. You've got, everyone under the sun, media, reporters, photographers, videographers. You're trying to share a space with so many people. And it's really easy to just get, to start fangirling, fanboying, and just get starstruck overall for a lot of things. And so, I got people that I'm just like, hey, look at me, focus, because you just realized Patrick Mahomes ran out of the tunnel and I done lost everyone's focus. So I got to bring them back. I say that more jokingly, if anything, but that day was just like, I'm still thawing out. At the end of the day, still thawing out.
That's crazy, but that's facts.
Yeah.
That was a wild one. We appreciate your service to our local Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone here in Kansas City, I think we can, at least all the listeners, we can say we love our Chiefs, and we understand, or at least they understand now, that there's a whole entire team and organization behind everything they see on TV, which makes the game enjoyable. At the end of the day, people forget how important all that is to getting the players hyped up before the game as well, which contributes to their performance. If that's all botched and thing is shot to shit to failure, they're going to be in their fucked up mood too. So, we appreciate you, and I appreciate the hard work you put in the past 10 years to get where you're at today. You're still young as hell. Can't wait to see where you're at in the next 10 years. I know we didn't get to dive into it, but like you said, you're dabbling in the consulting space in sports, dabbling in NIL. I'm sure there's other endeavors that you'll chase in the sports industry. We might end up seeing you as the commissioner of the NFL in 2050. You never know.
Never know.
So I'm excited to see where life takes you. But to wrap this podcast up, I want to ask you a few random bonus questions just to keep the mood light, end it on a good note, and then the question that we ask everybody. So that being said, what's been making you smile recently? It's only been about 2 weeks in 2024, but in 2024, what has been making you smile recently?
Oh man, what's been making me smile recently? Just looking forward to this new year. What comes with your highest of highs also comes with some low lows. And a lot of the times we look into the social media world and everyone posts their high highs, but no one posts like the low lows or what you've gone through over the past couple of years, which when you start to really talk to a lot of people one-on-one, everyone's been going through something the past couple of years. So really for me, smiling is just seeing what's coming up for 2024. I really feel like this is going to be a great and amazing year, and I'm just looking forward to the experiences that come out of it.
I love it. What is one business that if tomorrow you were told by the Kansas City Chiefs, hey, we want to invest some of our capital from the team in a business, and we want you to lead and run this business and operate it? I know I got a little crazy, a little out there. What would that business be like? What would you want it to be? And they're like, hey, we're going to invest, and let's keep it in the sports industry so it doesn't have to be too confusing.
Okay.
So, we want to go buy an NIL agency, or we want to go, we want to invest in a local Midwest, like, semi-pro football league, and or whatever it might be. Like, what is a space or a business you would be interested in operating if it was in the sports industry and you were told to go run it?
Oh, it definitely would have to be, I don't know if I can say a specific business, but I think it would have to do with women's sports to some degree. As we all have seen, or if you pay attention to women's sports in general and just the sports world, it's crazy how much it's grown in just the last 2 years.
Thank you, Angel Reese. Thank you, Caitlin Clark. Thank you, Casey Current.
Absolutely.
So definitely a big 3 thank yous to them, but also a major thank you to the people who even brought some attention to those spaces.
Yes.
So shout out Maya Moore, shout out Mia Hamm, shout out, I ain't gonna lie, I forgot her name, but amazing soccer player, played for USA, short hair, speaks up for
Megan Rapinoe.
Megan Rapinoe.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Sue Bird. Shout out to some of the legends that came through in order to make this even possible.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Build that foundation for people to pay attention. And then this second wave of amazing women athletes and organizations really, dominating the space. So, maybe you'll be the commissioner of the NWSL. Who knows?
Maybe so.
I don't know. I see big things down there. I see big things coming.
I receive it.
And we're excited we had you on the show today. Final question of the day is, it's your last day on earth. You've lived 120 years old, and you're sitting there and you got like 50 grandchildren sitting at your feet, and they all look up at you and they ask in unison, which is kind of scary, but they all ask at the same time, great-great-great-grandma, what's one piece of advice on how to live a good life? What are you going to tell them?
Ooh. How to live a good life. Always lead with empathy. You never know what the person next to you is going through. So don't assume because of how they treat you, that's who they are. And you live every day like there is no tomorrow because you don't get a day back. So I have a bunch of different sayings, but we just don't keep it at that.
I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Angel, where can they follow you? How can they support you? And then we're going to wrap it up.
Absolutely. So I'm on all the platforms, Twitter and Instagram. She is a McGee, MCGEE. I'm also on LinkedIn, Angel McGee, and Facebook, Angel McGee. So I'm not too hard to find. But if anything, support women's sports. We need you. Any way that you can, support your local teams, support your women's teams, support us in general.
That part. And y'all already know who it is. Collis Stutzer, a.k.a. CIZZY, live action, Kansas City, Missouri. Make sure you tap in with me at Coach Stutzer. I'm here to protect and promote public health. Salute.